Live from WXOU at Oakland University, it's the GioMoShow. Now, give it up for your host, GioMoShow.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow, right here from WXOU. I am your host, Giovanni Mosheri, and this is the one and only show that covers the Oakland University Golden Grizzlies each and every week. Be sure to subscribe right here on YouTube, rate, review, and subscribe. Wherever you get the podcast, be sure to support the GioMoShow however and wherever you can, especially now that the 2024 season is starting to approach. We're getting into late August. Right now we're mid-August or beginning of August, but the sports are starting to come back. We got soccer, both men's and women's, and volleyball starting to gear up and starting to get ready. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the coverage throughout the Golden Grizzlies season and beyond. To also follow the Golden Grizzlies, you can go to WXOU Sports on YouTube, where we'll have all of our free broadcasts of Oakland University home games for you to listen from our hosts right here at WXOU. Don't forget to follow WXOU on social media as well. Go to their website, WXOU.org, and you can follow the GioMoShow and myself all over social media. The GioMoShow has its own Instagram page that you can find at the GioMo Show, and you can get involved with the show by using the hashtag the GioMo Show on Instagram and Twitter to stay connected with the show here. So what do we got for this week? We're starting it into August. Our first episode in the month of August of 2024. And we're going to get into our last bit of season reviews. We have yet to cover baseball and softball, some of the latest sports that we have here at Oakland University. So we're going to give them their spotlight before we really start to gear in and really start to get ready for the soccer and volleyball seasons, cross country as well, coming up, and whatever other sports I failed to mention. Sorry. So we're going to get into all that. We're also going to get into the Olympics. Of course, I love the Olympics. We talked all about it last episode, about how much I love it as an athletic event, as a broadcasting event. So we're going to talk more about it. We're going to talk about I'm used to saying swim and dive. Talk about USA Swimming getting above the Australians in the gold count in the pool, as well as Noah Lyles and the track and field events going on. We'll just talk all about the Olympics and kind of what's going on at this point. The USA up there in the gold medal count now. So we'll talk all about that here on the GioMoShow. But before we do that, we have a couple of messages from our friends of the GioMoShow.
Are you looking for the ultimate sports experience? Well, look no further. My name is Jake Masucci, and I host a podcast called Jake's Takes. I am currently a sophomore at Oakland University and am a student manager with the men's basketball program. I started this sports podcast about 6 months ago, and I fell in love. I've been covering NFL, college football, and NBA, and going super in depth with it. I bring on a lot of guests to talk about each sport that they're passionate about. I've even covered some hockey, some baseball. We even dove into some Marvel comics, which was super fun. So this podcast covers a lot, and I've really been enjoying myself. We come out Mondays every week, and we'll even sprinkle in some weekdays. We'll be on Wednesdays sometimes. We'll be on Thursdays sometimes. We'll be on Friday. So sprinkling in every once in a while. The podcast is available on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And we also have a great YouTube going up. So subscribe to the Spotify, subscribe to YouTube, do whatever you got to do to support the channel. And I really appreciate it. And I'll hopefully see you guys on the next episode of Jake's Takes, but enjoy listening to Giovanni. Peace.
Before we get back to the show, let me tell you about Bart's Pizza. Bart Basilico reinvented his father's pizzeria business by putting it on wheels. I'm talking a pizza food truck, baby. Bart and his wife Lauren travel all around Metro Detroit, cooking up homemade pies made fresh to order in their 4-layered pizza oven on wheels. You can find them on their website at eatbartspizza.com and Facebook and Instagram as well at Bart's Pizza. His last name is literally Basil, so you know he knows what he's doing. Make sure to grab a cannoli as well while you're there. Bart's Pizza, it's too good. So let's get things started with Oakland University baseball and the 2024 season that they had, and a bit of news as to what the 2025 season could be looking like. So we'll start by going through their record and their seeding into the tournament. We'll get the all league honors in, as well as how the season ended in the Horizon League tournament, and a little bit into the extra news. And we'll be doing the same for softball in a little bit, but we'll start with baseball. So Oakland University has been coming off of back-to-back trips to the Horizon League Championship game, against Wright State was their opponents for both of those years, as Wright State has been the top team in the Horizon League for at least the past 6 years. I believe they won the past 6 championships. That was shaken up a little bit in this season by Northern Kentucky, as they were able to win the Horizon League this season. So that kind of spoils it for the Golden Grizzlies. No, we did not win the Horizon League this season. The way we got into it was, obviously you get into your out of conference stuff early in the month of February. You go traveling across the country, wherever it's a little bit warmer out, face some MAC teams, some Big Ten teams. Came back home with a couple of great audience games against Rochester and Cleary University. The first games at home, 20-4 against Rochester, 19-6 against Cleary. So that one was a lot of fun. But once we got into the Horizon League season, we had a bit of a bumpy start. As we got it started in the month of March, in the middle of March, we were swept at Northern Kentucky by the Norse, 18-8 in 8 innings, that one ending early, 2-6, and then 6-7 in extra innings. Oakland unable to get a Horizon League win and starting themselves off in a 3-0 hole. And they would bounce back with a series win against Youngstown State. And we're not going to go over each series, each game. We're going to breeze through it a little bit here. But what was very interesting to see is that the Wright State, obviously the big rival, the big bad boys of the Horizon League, Oakland started off with a series win against Wright State. In 7 innings on March 28th, Oakland in Dayton, Ohio, by the way, at Wright State, 19-1 victory in 7 innings was how they started their season against Wright State. They would follow that up with a close 4-5 loss, but then get the win back and the series win 12-7 in the third game of that away series at Wright State. So Oakland making a big statement in the Horizon League early in the season. They would then follow that up with a sweep of the Milwaukee Panthers, a team that would end up being a good team coming into the season. There wasn't really a necessarily really bad team in the Horizon League this season. But Oakland, again, away for this one, got the sweep against the Panthers. And I'm not going over much of the out-of-conference stuff. I want to stay focused a bit on the Horizon League kind of things. And then our first home Horizon League series was against Purdue-Fort Wayne, where Oakland lost the first one but ended up winning the second 2 for another series win, in which they scored 8 runs in both of those wins, holding Purdue-Fort Wayne to at most 5 runs. So continuing, we host Northern Kentucky, trying to get some redemption off the sweep that they gave us in the beginning of the season. Oakland would end up getting that, but it unfortunately came off the heels of the worst loss that they had throughout the season. In Game 1 at home, trying to get revenge against Northern Kentucky, Oakland suffered a 3-24 7-inning loss. And that one was very rough. We were broadcasting that one. I remember specifically. I wasn't on the call for it, but I remember being in attendance, kind of helping out the broadcast here. And, dude, it was bad. It was some of the first time that we had these broadcasters, some new additions to the team, go on. And their first baseball game had to be a 3-24 loss. So it was after a little bit we said, okay, let's pack up. Let's get out of here. There's nothing to watch here, unfortunately. But luckily for us, the second and third game of those series would be wins for the Golden Grizzlies, a 7-3 victory in Game 2 to turn things around, and it came down to the wire in Game 3 of that series. 10-9 victory for the Golden Grizzlies in extra innings was how they were able to bounce back against Northern Kentucky. But after that kind of, that high moment in their season, they would travel to Youngstown State, the team that was seeded last in the Horizon League and was towards the bottom for most of the season. They would end up beating our Golden Grizzlies On the road in Youngstown, Ohio, 4-10 loss, 6-7 close loss in Game 2. Oakland would turn it around with an 11-2 victory, but by then the series was already set for Youngstown State. So that one was a bit of a shocker, no doubt about it. And then getting into the month of May, we host Wright State to try and complete the season series win against Wright State. And it would end up being very close throughout. 6-7 was a loss for the Golden Grizzlies in Game 1 against Wright State. And then Oakland would come back in a very offensive firework fashion, 15-12 victory over Wright State in Game 2 to set up the rubber match, to set up the game that would decide would Oakland get the season series win over Wright State or would they not? And that was a game that I was on the call by myself May 5th. Made my trip down to the Oakland baseball field, got the call of the game. Unfortunately, it would not be the case. Oakland would lose the series to Wright State 2-4 in Game 3 to make it even throughout the series 3-3 against the top team in the league. We continue into the month of May. Oakland getting another sweep and therefore the season sweep over Milwaukee. The Panthers, a 1-0 victory, 8-3, 4-2 to complete the sweep of the Panthers. And they would almost do the same against Purdue Fort Wayne. A tight Game 1 win, 10-9, a 10-inning loss, 3-4 against Purdue Fort Wayne, and then a 9-7 victory to seal the series on the road against Purdue Fort Wayne. So that would set up the Horizon League Championship Tournament of 2024. And getting into the seeding of this one, as it shook out, Wright State would take first place with a 20-10 conference record. Northern Kentucky was very close and was fighting for that number 1 spot against Wright State. They would end up getting the second seed. 19-11 was their conference win. But Oakland was fighting for that second place spot as well, as it got to a point where they weren't going to be able to catch Wright State, especially after their last series loss against them. But we were fighting for that second seed because the second seed gets you a bye in the tournament. It's something that Oakland had the past couple of years when they went to the Horizon League Championship game. But Northern Kentucky was just able to squeeze them out, forcing Oakland to play in the first round as a third seed. An 8-12 conference record would put them at third place. So that would match them up against the 6th seed Youngstown State Penguins, who were 9-21 in their conference season. But Oakland would get the loss in this one. Oakland would not win their first game in the Horizon League tournament. A 10-13 loss was what was had, as the Penguins proved to give Oakland trouble throughout the season despite the seeding disparity. And then that would set them up in the consolation bracket against Purdue Fort Wayne, the number 5 seed, the second to last team in the Horizon League. But unfortunately, Oakland was unable to get the win here as well. 8-14 was the loss, as the Mastodons would continue in the consolation bracket. Youngstown State would end up making a run in that tournament, obviously not being able to get the win, but they had an impressive run despite the record that they had going into it. I was trying to pull up the way the bracket went here. Give me 1 second here. I don't know why they already have the 2025 Horizon League bracket already gone, but either way, we'll move past it. But Oakland, unfortunately, ending their season in a disappointing fashion, a double loss exit in the Horizon League tournament was the one that sealed their season. But it was not all bad news. I meant to cover this before we got into the Horizon League tournament, but I want to talk about the all-league honors that were had for baseball this season. We will Control F Oakland to make sure we find all of them. So the biggest story, story in terms of the Horizon League Awards was had by Brandon Decker. Pitcher for the Golden Grizzlies, led the league in innings pitched, in strikeouts, in all sorts of statistical categories as he was on the mound for a lot of this season. That earned him Pitcher of the Year for the Horizon League. And it would obviously put him in the first team all-conference. But second team all-conference, we saw Brandon Heidel at the catcher spot, who was beaten out by Sammy Sass of Wright State to get that first team spot. But then we go into the all-freshman team, as this was a young team for the Golden Grizzlies this season. It's been a lot of turnover in terms of that, but we relied a lot on the younger guys, and therefore we had 4 members of the Horizon League all-freshman team. Lucas Day, Shane McLinden, Aiden Orr, and Trent Rice were members of the all-freshman team. And Trent Rice, and I also want to mention Reggie Bussey in this, as they were some of the best base stealers in the country. Not just Horizon League, in the country. It got to the point where Trent Rice was number 1, was top 2, top 3 in the country in stolen bases. And Reggie Bussey would be mentioned in the top 20 of that as well, as the Golden Grizzlies was one of the top base stealing teams in the country as a whole. So those are some of the big stories, and I wanted to make sure to mention those. But as a result, getting into part of the off season here, coming off of that fantastic season that Brandon Decker had on the mound, he would end up being drafted to the New York Yankees in the MLB draft. And there was a total of 4 Horizon League players that were drafted into the MLB. And that's big time. And I'm not here to speculate as how, what the Yankees' minor league system is going to be like. And I don't know any of that stuff, okay? I'm not claiming to know that. But either way, he signed the paper. He got the hat. The graphic is up. Brandon Decker is a Yankee. After we just got done covering his whole season here, we had a few interviews with him on WXOU Sports that you can go and watch. But it was just it was so great to see the season that he had. He was always such a nice guy for the interviews that we had with him, and we wish him nothing but the best in the pro leagues, man. In the big time for Brandon Decker, one of the best pitchers the best pitcher in the Horizon League. But now we get into a bit of the off-season stuff. I'll probably make this a segment for next season, but a segment covering all of the coaching changes that the Golden Grizzlies have been seeing, not only in this season, but in the past 2 years. And I tweeted out something like this like a few weeks ago, but Oakland has lost like half their coaching staff within the past 2 years, and baseball would be included in this as well. Now, some of them have moved on to bigger and brighter things. Some of them have, retired from coaching to pursue a different career path. Some were fired as well. And it's just been such a strange turnover of coaching. So I want to dive into that more for next week. But as it pertains to baseball, Jordan Banfield, who was at the helm for the Golden Grizzlies for about 3 years, has had one of the most successful runs in Oakland baseball history, turning the program into a perennial conference contender. Has now moved on to, I forget the team. One moment here. It was some team in California. I haven't heard of it before. But he moved on to bigger and brighter things after a successful run with the Golden Grizzlies. As we quickly Google the results here. Yes, so Jordan Banfield is now the head coach of the California State University Roadrunners baseball program. And after a very successful run with the Golden Grizzlies, he now moves on to bigger and better things. And thus, the Golden Grizzlies have promoted Brian Nelson as the interim head coach coming into the 2024 season for the Golden Grizzlies. You can learn more about him as Patty Cesarini did an interview with them via Golden Grizzlies, the official Golden Grizzlies accounts. Did an interview with Brian Nelson trying to get a sense of, of him, his history, and what he's looking for in the next season. And he mentioned that the team is already in great shape. He doesn't have to do a lot of rebuilding, more of keeping the ship afloat and keeping things on the trajectory that Jordan Banfield had put it on over the past few seasons with the Golden Grizzlies. So I suggest to get to know Coach Nelson that you go and watch the interview Patty did with him. So that sets up the Golden Grizzlies coming off of an early exit as a 3rd seed in the Horizon League tournament, looking now to get back into the top 2, get that bye, and get back to the championship game, and finally bring home a conference championship win for the Golden Grizzlies. So with that, now all wrapped up, we'll get into the softball portion of this as well, as we're double dipping here on this episode of the GioMoShow, talking both baseball and softball. So getting into the softball schedule, the Golden Grizzlies, as far as their record, would finish an overall 25-19, and in the conference 17-6. And we'll go through some of the highlights of their season as well, as they obviously go through kind of a similar schedule as the baseball team. They do a lot of their out-of-conference stuff out of, Michigan, trying to get some warm weather. They would go to the Cougar Classic, where they would face teams like Carolina or South Carolina State, Charleston, Princeton, North Carolina. They would go to Coastal Carolina, Yale, Iowa, Michigan State in the Chanticleer Showdown. And they would go to Indiana to face Indiana University and Dayton in the Indiana Invite before they get into the Horizon League part of their season. So just like the baseball team, the softball team also started their season with a series against Northern Kentucky. Oakland would end up winning this one in the third game to start them off 2-1 in the Horizon League season, 7-4 in Game 1 for the victory, 1-2 loss in Game 2, and a shutout, 3-0 victory in Game 3. They would face then University of Michigan and Western Michigan, losing both of those, unfortunately. And then they would get a win against Central Michigan in Mount Pleasant. They would kick back into Horizon League action against Cleveland State, where they would have a 3-game series, of which they came close to the sweep with a 9-4 victory in Game 1, a 3-1 victory in Game 2, but a 3-5 loss in Game 3. They would then go to, or rather they would host the Youngstown State Penguins to win the series in similar fashion in Northern Kentucky in Game 3, 5-4 in Game 1, 1-3 in Game 2, and another shutout series victory in Game 3, 3-0 against the Penguins. We would come close to a sweep against Detroit Mercy. Now we're getting into the month of April, or we're in the month of April already. Oakland with this one, I want to go a little more into detail of this one because we were on the call for Game 2 of the series, which was the only one that Oakland lost and the only one that Oakland gave up any runs in. It was a 10-0 win in Game 1, and then because of tight schedules with the station, we were only able to do the first game of the doubleheader that finishes out this series with the Titans. And the first game happened to be a slow, defensive 1-2 loss for the Golden Grizzlies against the Titans. And then, a few minutes later after we leave, an 8-0 victory. Like, come on. We happened to broadcast the only loss in that season. So it was me and Drew Allison on the call. It was so frustrating, man. Because when we win, we're able to do post-game interviews and all that kind of stuff. But we were only able to do the broadcaster review for that one. So then we follow it up with a sweep of Green Bay in Green Bay, as well as a sweep hosting IUPUI before we get into their series with Robert Morris that would end on Senior Day. It would come, the Senior Day game would be with already a series loss. So Oakland would lose the first 2 games against Robert Morris at Robert Morris, 3-9 and 2-4. And then we get the 7-4 victory on Senior Day to not make it a sweep, but still lose the series, to celebrate the many seniors that the Golden Grizzlies have on this team. They would then get worked by Michigan State before their final regular season series against Purdue Fort Wayne that would end in a sweep. So the Golden Grizzlies would go into the Horizon League tournament winning their previous 4 Horizon League games. So where would that set them up in the standings? And how are they set up for the Horizon League tournament? We'll get into the all-season awards, and then we'll get into the results of the tournament, which is how I meant to order the baseball segment. But the Golden Grizzlies would go into the Horizon League tournament as the second seed, as Youngstown State proved to be a juggernaut in the conference. 20-4 was their conference record. Oakland a few games behind, 17-6. And Cleveland State and Northern Kentucky a bit farther behind, 14-10. They tied in their record for the top 4 spots. So that means Oakland did get the first round bye, waiting for a matchup with Cleveland State after Cleveland State beat IUPUI in the opening rounds. But unfortunately, Oakland would not move on in the winner's bracket, but rather they would go to the consolation as they would suffer a defensive loss 1-2 against Cleveland State. And then in the consolation bracket, unfortunately, they would face Northern Kentucky, and a 4-7 loss would be had as the Golden Grizzlies were double eliminated as well. So both baseball and softball top 3 seed, either third or second seed, exiting early with a double elimination in the Horizon League tournament. And dang it, I got the order wrong again. Shoot. But yes, it was very disappointing to see both the teams go out in that fashion. But we'll get into now the all-league awards. A little bit more decorated for the softball team compared to the baseball team, as Oakland would take home Pitcher of the Year for Sidney Campbell, just like Brandon Decker did for the baseball team. But there's more to this Pitcher of the Year for Sidney Campbell. This is her 3rd year in a row winning it. I covered it in the last episode back in the spring. But she's been first team All-League 4 years in a row. She's been Pitcher of the Year 3 years in a row. And so she has been already, last season, broke the record for most wins for an Oakland pitcher in school history. And then she has an entire Pitcher of the Year season on top of that as one of the most dominant players in the league. But not only that, Defensive Player of the Year was awarded to 4 players. I don't know if that's normal. To 4 players, of which includes Oakland's catcher, Jen Kritska, winning one of the Defensive Players of the Year awards. And then we get into the first team, second team, and freshman team. Oakland would have they would have 3 in the first team, including Macy Brown, Reese Ruhlman, and Sidney Campbell, of course. But then the second team would include Jen Kritska, which I find odd that she wasn't the only catcher that was Defensive Player of the Year. But Jen Kritska would be on the second team of the Horizon League, along with freshman Brooklyn Plitz and Cameron Troyer. So that's 3 in the first and 3 in the second team. And when we get to the freshman team, Alyssa Balcom and Brooklyn Plitz, pitcher and first base, I believe are their positions. Getting to the all-freshman team, Reese Ruhlman rounding out the awards as a finalist for the Sportsmanship Award for the Horizon League. So very decorated for the Golden Grizzlies, a very stacked, very high-powered roster, obviously for their second seed in the tournament. It is reflected in that, but it was so disappointing. It was so darn it for how their season ended, given their roster that they had. And yes, they were without Coach Karn this season, and they had kind of a similar thing as what the baseball team is going through right now. Last season, as Coach Karn would go to Maryland to be the head coach for them as well. And for the interim head coach spot, just want to make sure I get this right. For the head coaching spot, they would have Samantha Henderson promoted from an assistant coach position to the interim head coach position to fill it in for the Golden Grizzlies. And for the interim spot, it was kind of a similar thing to what Brian Nelson is going to be doing for the baseball team. It was already a actual championship level team. They won it in 2021, and they won the regular season in the next 2 seasons. So it was already a team that was built for championships, and Samantha Henderson did a great job kind of carrying that to a second seed, but it just couldn't happen in the tournament, unfortunately. So now we get into some of the off-season stuff. The head coaching spot has been filled as Oakland names Chris Stelma as a new head coach for the Golden Grizzlies, coming from St. Peter's to continue Oakland to another high-level season in many seasons, I would believe, is the goal. You can also find another interview between Patty Cesarini and Coach Chris Stelma via Golden Grizzlies, wherever you find it, whether Instagram or YouTube, to get to know head coach Chris Stelma and his trip or his career from 8 years at St. Peter's and beyond in that. So, we direct you to that, and we wrap up the segment here for baseball and softball. Unfortunately, both high-powered teams ending in a double elimination in the conference tournament. Many all-league awards given. It's just a shame to see how it ended. So that'll wrap up the Oakland sports part of the Jomo Show here. We will continue with the Beyond portion of the show as we'll wrap it up with more and more Olympics, more gold medals, more storylines, more of why I just love the Olympics. We'll have that coming up right here on the Jomo Show. Welcome back here to the Jomo Show. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to support the show as we get into the fall 2024 season for the Golden Grizzlies. Remember, we got men's and women's soccer and volleyball coming up, and we'll be covering all of it here on the Jomo Show and on WXOU Sports. So, we just got done talking about baseball and softball, both of their season recaps of the 2024 spring season, both unfortunately ending in double eliminations in the Horizon League tournament. But now we turn to the global stage. We go away from Oakland, from the Horizon League, from college sports, into the world. We're going to talk more about the Olympics here. Some of the highlights that I wanted to mention, obviously I'm tuned into the swim and the swimming portion of the Olympics. And if you want to hear more about that, last week I did an interview with Ian Allen of the Golden Grizzlies swim and dive team, and his views and his experience as it relates to his swimming career and what the USA team is looking to do against the Australian team for this season. You can go and find that. We'll have that linked in the description here. Go watch my interview with Ian Allen. He is such an amazing resource and such an amazing voice to hear, not only about swimming as a sport, but about the mentality and the mental side of swimming and athletics as a whole. So I greatly recommend that you go and watch that. But the story now has wrapped up for the swimming part of the Paris 2024 Olympics, as the Team USA was barely able, in a narrow margin, able to defeat the Australians in gold medals in the pool, thanks in large part to the women's team. As we would end up with a final count, 8 gold medals in the pool for the USA and only 7 for the Australians. And it came down to the final day of swim in Paris. It got tied up with men's 1,500-meter freestyler Bobby Fink. A world record and a gold medal would tie it up at 7-7 for gold medals with the USA and Australia, and it would come down to the women's 4x100 medley relay. A relay that was so stacked that had medalists in every stroke discipline. They were able to get the job done, get the gold medal for the USA, and defeat the Australians in that count in, like I mentioned, such a stacked relay. And what I thought was funny is that they had Gretchen Walsh do the butterfly and Tori Husk do the freestyle. But what was strange is that Tori Husk was the one that won the gold medal in the 100 fly, which is what she would have been doing in the relay, and Gretchen Walsh was second. Gretchen Walsh was also the record holder coming into the Olympics, and both of them, fantastic in both stroke disciplines. So it was just kind of funny to see how they picked who to do what, but it didn't matter as the USA got a clear victory as Tori Husk was able to finish out in the freestyle portion and get the win for Team USA. And that thus wraps up the swimming part of the Olympics, as we're now more into the track and field part of it in terms of, the bigger multi-event sports. As, the U.S. continuing to get their gold medals in track and field. Shot put, we got 1 and 2 in, and I believe it was a 4-year streak of a shot put gold medal. I love seeing all of these historical things that they post on social media, the Olympics account or Team USA account. It's just so much history that you would never know about the dominance of Team USA in a lot of these events. And, shot put, I know, was one of them. But the big one and the big headline, this is the one I'm going to pour a lot more of the sauce on. We're going to spend a lot more time on this one, is Noah Lyles. Everyone's talking about him, of course. The gold medal goes to Team USA in the 100-meter dash for the first time in 20 years by a razor thin margin of 5 thousandths of a second. That was the margin that Noah Lyles won the 100-meter dash in by getting the lean, by leaning in and getting the torso and the shoulders cross the finish line before anybody else. After trailing at 40 meters, about halfway through the race, he's last place. But you see this on a lot of his events. If you watch kind of the replays of the stuff he did at World Championships and stuff, he always has a fantastic finish. He's lagging behind in the first half of the race, but he always finishes strong. And he does so on the biggest stage. So there's a lot of angles that you can take with this, obviously. Noah Lyles is a very attention-grabbing athlete and figure in the world of sports. Not only track and field, but in general, but in totality. And everyone, they go back to the comments that he made about the NBA Finals and, why do they call themselves world champs? And, and beyond that, all the talk that he does about himself, all the chest pumping and all the hyping himself up. And, he grabs your attention. And, all the ads that he does, all the commercials that would go through the Olympics, and you're nervous that all that talk would come pouring back on him if he didn't win gold in the 100-meter dash. And the 200-meter dash would be included, although that hasn't happened quite yet as of this episode of the GioMoShow. But you're the whole time you are so scared that he's can't quite do it, and everyone's gonna kill him over it because of how much he talked and how much he talked about it. But he ended up doing it anyway. But even then, people are still upset with him and don't like him very much. But let me tell you something about athletes and about mentality, and about kind of anything that you do and have a passion for. It's not just, the athletes don't just talk and don't just hype themselves up because they're cocky, because they want attention, because they want the camera on them. That's not why a lot of these athletes do this. And it's more than that, because a lot of times, and I have done some of this stuff myself as a broadcaster, you got to talk yourself up to be able to then chase yourself and chase the words that you say to try and continue and further motivate yourself. If you're going to talk all this smack, then you're going to work extra hard to be able to back it up. If you're going to grab all this attention, you got to deliver. And athletes will do that to put the extra pressure on themselves to be able to get themselves to chase it further. And I believe that's what Noah Lyles does, along with it just being part of his personality. That's what athletes will do. They'll set a bar for themselves for not only them to live up to, but for you to make them live up to. You as the audience, you as the sports world, you as everyone watching. He's making sure that he can live up to it. And I that's what people do. And naturally, that comes with the consequences. If you don't do it, you're going to get trashed. So I love what Noah Lyles does for that, partly for that reason. And another reason I love the dude is because it's, being yourself is hard. We're getting into, deeper waters here outside of sports, but being yourself is very hard. It's a very difficult thing to do because not only, like being unique is an amazing thing. But the thing is about being unique is that it's just you. Not a lot of people are going to be unique with you. So for Noah Lyles, an athlete on the biggest stage in the world of his sport and of all sport, to be able to continue to show his personality, to show the Yu-Gi-Oh card, the Blue Eyes White Dragon that he's got on, under his uniform, and to, having the tongue out and running and showboating, and to be able to do all this stuff with so much pressure on you is remarkable. It's something that takes such courage to be able to do. And beyond that, it's something that's good for the sport. I always think about this when it comes to Olympic sports and athletes that try to be a personality and wave the flag for their sport, and sometimes they're going to have to do stuff to kind of grab your attention for it. Noah Lyles does that for track and field. He does that for sprinting, as being like the fastest man in the world. It is true. It's also a great tagline to get your attention for it. And Usain Bolt, the guy that Noah Lyles is trying to chase throughout all of his sprinting career, told Noah Lyles saying, keep being who you are, man. The sport needs your personality. And that's the thing is, with him being himself and being that showboat, he's also the biggest representative for track and field, at least in the United States. And a lot of these sports need that. A lot of these sports need, because they only appear once every 4 years for most of the people watching, even though their sport continues within those 4 years with world championships and NCAAs and all that kind of stuff. So, that's a big responsibility to have as well for Noah Lyles. So I say all of that to wrap it up, to say that I love what he does and what he represents and what he puts himself through, and how he's able to back it up. I'm a huge fan of what he does, and I hope that he's able to get the double gold in the 100 and the 200 that comes up. The 200 is more of his event anyway. But I love the dude and what he represents, man, because that's tough to do. That's very tough to do when you got the world watching you. So I wanted to make sure to throw my flowers to him as well. So, and now I kind of want to bring it to a bigger point here. We got a few minutes left here on the GioMoShow. And I want to send a message to all the young athletes out there that might be watching, that might be watching me as well as watching the Olympics. Because this is a crucial time for all the sports, obviously. But I want to draw attention to how inspiring it all is for young athletes. And my mind goes back to the clip of Katie Ledecky waving to the little girl in the stands and her like basically passing out. Like she saw like one of the Jonas Brothers back in the day. Like in such joy, in such awe that Katie Ledecky even looked at her. The Olympics is so inspiring for everybody. No matter for what you're doing. If you're not doing track and field, you could still be inspired by every athlete dedicating their lives to this monumental accomplishment. It's inspiring for everybody. So I want to send a message to all of you listening at home, whether you're in middle school or high school or you're getting into, a new sport. It doesn't matter what level or what age. But make sure that your attention to the sport doesn't go just as the Olympics goes. If you're in middle school starting with track and field, if you're in middle school starting swimming or in high school, get involved in your sport outside of practices and competitions. Because there are so many athletes, and with social media now and the coverage that they're all getting, make sure that you stay tuned in. It's so much more powerful to be able to connect with and to understand and to follow the sport that you're participating in. Because when I was a swimmer in high school, I didn't, I remember watching the Rio 2016 Olympics. That was me going into my freshman year, starting my first year in swimming as a high school freshman. I was 14 years old. And I remember watching the Olympics and being like, wow, that looks really hard. But it also kind of like primed my brain to really like take it seriously, to be like, no, I'm not going to make it to that Olympic level, but what I'm doing represents that. I am doing the same thing as these like high level Olympic athletes. I'm doing the same thing. So what better resource and what better inspiration than to those who are the best at it? So I encourage all of you, if you're getting into a sport, keep up with the professional side of it. Keep up with NCAAs. Keep up with who has the fastest times. Keep up with the technique that they use and try to incorporate it in yourselves. Be a fan of the sport that you are in. Because whether you think it or not, everything that you do in life in general, everything you do, you are a representative of it. So if you're a high school swimmer and, many people, you might be the only swimmer in their lives. You got to represent it well, and you got to be able to give it your all, to give the sport its fair shot, because the sport deserves all of your effort. The sport deserves everything that you have. So give it everything you have. Take mental notes as you're watching clips of the Olympics. Oh, I noticed that they took this many kicks off the dolphin wall, or dolphin kicks off the wall. I noticed that their breaststroke is a little bit longer of a stroke as opposed to a very rapid one. I noticed that, in this start they do this in warm-ups. Take notes of the professionals. Take notes of the best. Incorporate it in yourself, or at least keep your mind moving with it. It'll keep you a lot more engaged in your sport, and it will keep you much more motivated than just simply somebody, your coach or your teammates yelling at you to do it. Get invested with it in yourself. Listen to podcasts, watch the clips, take notes, go all in on your sport because the sport deserves it. And whether you're done with it after 4 years of high school, that's fine. But you gave it everything. So I want to make sure that message goes out to all the young swimmers, all the young track athletes, all the young anybody, rugby, anything. The Olympics are a time for you to pay attention and to stay paid attention to your sport and what advancements it's taking. So that's a long-winded way to say keep up with your sport outside the Olympics. It happens outside the Olympics. Keep up with it. So those will be my closing remarks for the Olympics here as we get into, I believe it's the final week of Olympic competition. So the next week of the Jomo Show, we'll talk about more of like in totality, will the U.S. be the top gold medalist, or will China beat them out? Or will somebody sneak up in the gold medal race, whether it's the hosting France will be able to do it? We'll talk all about that stuff in totality next week on the Jomo Show, as well as getting primed for the Golden Grizzlies getting back into action in fall 2024. As games are starting to begin in mid-August, and I'm really excited for it. So I hope you guys are excited for it as well. Be sure to subscribe, support the podcast wherever you can. Be sure to stay tuned into the Golden Grizzlies, stay tuned into the Olympics, and stay tuned right here on WXOU. So we'll see you next week, everybody, on the GioMoShow.